Hi, 3, 2, and 3, 4. Welcome back. I am going to introduce you to another enrichment activity that you could do. So I'm going to do an example for you today. And you notice Mrs. Moser is dressed up. And we're going to find out in a little bit why she's wearing what she's wearing, because you know that crazy Mrs. Moser, she always has to have her costumes. So first things first is I want to talk to you about the project topic that I'm doing today. So in case you're interested in doing one like Mrs. Moser. So if you could zoom up here, Mr. Moser, for me. Here is my kind of objective or project topic today. How can I thank a member of my community? Well, a community we know is a group of people where they live, and right now we're going to think about some ways that we can thank them. So what I'm going to do today, first things first, is we are going to talk about some vocabulary words for this book that Mrs. Moser is going to read today, and it's called Not Your Typical Dragon. I'm going to tie this book when I start to read with our community. We're going to think about what the main character in the story, Crispin, what he actually ends up doing for his community at the end of the story. And then Mrs. Moser is going to tie it to our enrichment focus this week, okay? So first things first, I want to show you some of our vocabulary words. That way you can get involved when Mrs. Moser is recording. So let's take a look at our first word, please, Mr. Moser. And here's the word right here. I'm going to give you a couple seconds to figure out what you think the word says. And if you said that word was whisked, you are absolutely correct. The word is whisk. Let's do the syllables for it. Whisked. How many syllables? 1. Let's go ahead and raise it. Whisked. Cross it. Whisked. And tap it. Whisked. I also noticed something at the end of the word. We have our ed, which we know means it happened in the past, and it's a suffix. Our base word is whisk. But guess what, 3, 2, and 3, 4? This is also a special word. This is a good word. It is a homonym because there's more than one meaning for this word. So I want to show that to you real quick, because if you look at our definition, whisked, it says to take or move quickly. But guess what? There's another meaning for the word, and I'm going to model for you right now what that word is. Whisk means you whisk something. You're trying to stir it, okay, in a quick way. But that's not the whisk that we're talking about today, okay? So it is a multiple meaning word, but the whisk that we're talking about today is to take or move quickly. Oh my, okay, I wonder what's going to be taking or moved quickly. So I want you to think about that word for a minute. If it's a noun, person, place, or thing, something you can touch. A verb, an action, something you can do. Or if it's an adjective, a descriptive word, using all of your senses. Think about that word whisk, if you take something or move it quickly. If you said it was a verb, you are absolutely correct, because it's something we can do, okay? So whisk is something you can do. You can take something or move it quickly. Great job. Give yourselves a silent high five for that one. So our vocabulary word whisked, or hand motion, is going to be, when we hear this word in our story, we're going to do this. We're going to go like this really quickly, okay? So whenever Mrs. Moser reads the word whisked or any form of that word, we're going to do this, all right? Nice job. Mr. Moser, if you can show our next word, please. I'll give you a couple seconds to figure out what it says. Okay, if you said the word was confidently, you are absolutely correct. Excellent job. Let's go ahead and do the syllables for the word. Confidently. We had 4 for this one. Let's go ahead and dab it. Confidently. Let's go ahead and swim it. Confidently. And let's go ahead and sassy snap it. Confidently. Excellent job. You know what, 3, 2, and 3, 4? You should see something at the end of this word. Take a look up there. What do you see? I see something from our prefix suffix chant. And if you see the ly, we know ly means in a certain way, like quickly. Now watch me move. Move so quickly. Excellent. And 3, 2, and 3, 4. This is a special word. This is not a noun. This is not a verb. And this is not an adjective. It's a blend of two. Remember our motion for this one? Give you a second to think about what type of word that is and tell your family. If you said it was an adjective, or an adverb, sorry, you are absolutely correct. It is an adverb. It's a special word. So it's not a noun, a verb, or an adjective, but it's an adverb, okay? Now let's take a look what it says for our definition of confidently. It says to believe in self or abilities. So you really believe in something or have a belief in yourself or your abilities or someone else's. So our hand motion for this word is going to be, I believe in myself. So whenever Mrs. Moser reads the word confidently, we're going to go, I believe in myself. Okay? Let's go ahead and look at our next word. So Mr. Moser, if you'd like to zoom in on this word, please. Go ahead and take a couple seconds to figure out what it says. If you said the word was scorching, you are absolutely correct. Let's go ahead and do the syllables. Scorching, scorching. There are two. Let's go ahead and hold it. Scorching. Let's go ahead and peace sign it. Scorching. And let's go ahead and PS for it. Scorching. Nice job. Well, I noticed something at the end of this word. We have a suffix. We have ing. Ing can mean now. And then also when I think of this word, I think about how also I can use it to describe something. The scorching soup, the scorching weather. So if I can use that word to describe, do you think that's a noun, a verb, or an adjective? I'll give you a couple seconds. If you said it was an adjective, you are absolutely correct. Scorching is an adjective because we can use it to describe something. And in this case, scorching means very hot. So our hand motion for scorching is going to be very hot. Whew. Let's try that one more time. Very hot. Whew. Okay. And then our last word. Mr. Moser, if you could zoom in. Think about what the word says. If you said silliest, you are absolutely correct. So let's do our syllables for this word. Silliest. 3. Let's go ahead and Mr. Moser dab it. Silliest. Let's go ahead and selfie it. Silliest. And let's go ahead and ant clap it. Silliest. Excellent job. But also, let's take a look at the end of that word too. Oh my. ICEST. And if you listened to the story last week, you also saw this. Okay, EST we know means the most of something. So we're adding this ending onto silly, where we drop the Y and add I, and then add EST. So we have silly, sillier, silliest, the most silly. Okay, so in this case, the most foolish, someone acting crazy and foolish. Okay. So silliest, EST means the most. So think about that for a minute. If I'm using it to describe something, also thinking back to our mentor sentence when we had words that had EST at the end, if that's a noun, a verb, or an adjective. If you said it was an adjective, you are absolutely correct. And not only is it an adjective, it is a superlative adjective because it's the most. If it ended in ER, that means that it was more of something, and it would be a comparative adjective. So this is a adjective. Nice job. Go ahead and give yourselves a rock star for that. Doing a good job on the vocabulary words. So our hand motion for silliest is going to be silly, sillier, silliest. The most silly. Like you're covering up your mouth from laughing. The most silly. Okay, excellent job with the vocabulary. I'm going to give a shout out to RJ. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to stretch that before we go ahead into our book and before I talk to you about some other things. So go ahead and take 10 seconds to stretch while Mrs. Moser gets ready for the book, and then we'll go over our vocabulary words. Okay, hope you got a good stretch in. RJ, again, shout out to you for reminding me about stretch break from after you watched the video last time. we're going to go over our vocabulary words one more time, and then Mrs. Moser is going to start the story. Okay, our first word is whisked. Take or move quickly, and we know that that's a verb. So for whisked, when you hear it, we're going to do that. Confidently, which we know is an adverb. And believe in self or abilities. I believe in myself. Okay? And then scorching. Whew. It's an adjective because we can use it to describe. And it means very hot, like Mrs. Moser is scorching in her outfit right now. So, very hot. Whew. Okay? And then our last word is silliest. Silly, sillier, silliest. The most silly. And we know that means like the most foolish, and we also know that's an adjective, but it's mainly, well, it's not mainly, it is a superlative adjective. Okay? All right, I have a lot of stuff to talk to you about when we're finished the story, but right now Mrs. Moser is going to start our story. And the story is called Not Your Typical Dragon, and it's written by Dan Burrell, and it's illustrated by Tim Bowers. And the publisher of this book is Scholastic. So we're going to find out how Mrs. Moser is going to tie this story to your project topic about community. Okay, I'm so excited to read this story too. I love it. Crispin Blaze was born into a proud family of fire-breathing dragons. Every blaze breathes fire, explained his father. I breathe fire, your mother breathes fire. Tomorrow when you turn 7, you'll breathe fire too. The little dragon imagined all the forests he would burn down. He dreamed of all the castles he would destroy. He also considered boiling water to make tea, but he didn't tell his father that. The next day, Crispin sat among family and friends as a big cake was brought to the table. Who will light the birthday candles? His mother asked. I will, declared Crispin. He could feel a tingling inside his tummy, but when he opened his mouth, fire did not come out. Whipped cream came out. Crispin, shouted his father, dragons breathe fire. What will the neighbors think? Worried his mother. I love whipped cream, said his little sister Ashley. The little dragon was whisked off to the doctor the very next day. Please fix my son, demanded Crispin's father. What seems to be the problem? Asked the doctor. Crispin opened his mouth and breathed, but fire did not come out. So no fire. So let's see what's coming out of his mouth. Band-Aids came out. I see, said the doctor gravely. Dragons should breathe fire, insisted Crispin's father. We were low on Band-Aids, mumbled the nurse. The doctor sent Crispin home with medicine. He swallowed 2 teaspoons before going to school. It will help you become a real dragon, said his father with a wink. After school, Crispin joined his first fire-breathing practice. One by one, little dragons aimed their fiery breath at stacks of logs until they burst into flames. Crispin stepped up confidently. I believe in myself. He could feel the medicine bubbling in his belly. But when he opened his mouth, fire did not come out. So no fire. Are you ready to see what came out of his mouth? Marshmallows came out. I'm starting to get hungry, are you? Dragons breathe fire, yelled the coach. Isn't that right, class? The other dragons didn't answer. They were too busy looking for pointy sticks for marshmallow roasting. I'm going to take a minute here and think about that word pointy, because I want you to tell your families right now about a character that we read about that didn't like pointy things. Okay, here we go. I guess I'm not a real dragon, Crispin thought. He worried that his family would be disappointed. So he ran away from home. OMG. Think about how this story is making you feel right now as Mrs. Moser reads. The world could be a scary place for a little dragon who can't breathe fire. Crispin found a dark cave. I'll be a fireless dragon all by myself. I won't bother anyone, and no one will bother me. An hour later, Crispin had a visitor. I'm Sir George, squeaked the thin, shiny knight. Just show yourself, dragon. Crispin shuffled out the cave. That word I can connect to a story that we read. We read the story, Those Shoes, and we had the word shuffled, and our hand motion was this. And Jeremy was shuffled in the shoes that didn't fit him. The thin, shiny knight held up his thin, shiny sword. Do your worst, dragon! Crispin opened his mouth, but fire didn't come out. No fire? Let's find out what came out. Soap bubbles came out. Don't you breathe fire, dragon? Crispin shook his head. I can't. Sir George moaned. But my father insists that I fight a fire-breathing dragon. It even says here in my book that your typical dragon breathes fire. I'm not your typical dragon, Crispin explained. Sir George sighed. I can't go home. Me neither, Crispin nodded. But then he had an idea. Maybe your book could tell us what to do. Of course! Sir George searched through the pages. It says it's probably just your diet. Sir George fed Crispin spicy curry, scorching chili, very hot, and blistering salsa. Crispin opened his mouth, but fire didn't come out. Party streamers came out. At least they're the right color, said Sir George kindly. There's another Lee word. Lee means in a certain way. I want you to take a minute also and think about what would, whose point of view is this story being told from? Is it first person point of view? Or is it third person point of view based on the pronouns that are being used? I want you to think about that while Mrs. Moser is reading, okay? Sir George searched through the book again. Aha! It says it's probably your attitude. Sir George showed Crispin how to look mean and angry enough to breathe fire. Crispin opened his mouth, but fire didn't come out. Cute teddy bears came out. Soft and cuddly ones, that is. Said Sir George. We may have to have taken a step backward. It's no use, Crispin sighed. I'm just not your typical dragon. But Sir George was not ready to give up. Aha! The book says you're too stressed. Sir George made Crispin close his eyes while he described a quiet, relaxing day at the ocean. Do you feel calm? Now imagine 100 shiny knights attacking you. Crispin opened his mouth, but fire did not come out. Beach balls came out. Well, that's just plain weird. about what would be a good character trait for Sir George based on things he says, based on things he does. Action. Think about what he's doing for Crispin. Think about what would be a good character trait to describe him. Secretly, another L-Y word. Sir George was glad that Crispin couldn't breathe fire. He liked the little dragon and didn't want to fight him. Crispin liked the shiny knight too, but he missed his parents. Sir George, it's getting dark. I want to go home. The shiny knight patted him on the back. Don't worry, little dragon. I will take you. Crispin's parents were relieved when he arrived home safely. Sir George was about to say goodbye when they heard a shout. There you are, boy! Why on earth are you playing with a fire-breathing dragon? He's my friend, Father, whispered Sir George. And besides, he doesn't breathe fire. A dragon that doesn't breathe fire? That's the silliest thing I ever heard of. The shiny man laughed. Silly. Sillier. Silliest. The most silly. Crispin's father stormed out of the house. My son is not silly. He may not breathe fire, but I certainly do. Crispin's father let out a powerful spray of flames. Do your worst, dragon, declared the shiny man, but the flames scorched the lawn. There's another form of that word, scorch. It has the ED at the end. Very hot. Whew. That's enough, honey, said Crispin's mother. The flames singed the fence. You've made your you've made your point, dear. Now stop showing off, she scolded. Then the flames ignited the roof. Crispin's father panicked. I can't stop breathing fire! You'll burn our house down, cried his mother. You'll burn down the whole neighborhood! Dragons came running from all directions. They knew how to start fires, but no one knew how to stop them. Crispin suddenly felt a tingling in his tummy. He felt a bubbling in his belly. He opened his mouth, but fire didn't come out. A gush of water shot out. Crispin aimed the water at his father's flames. He saved his home, and he even saved the shiny man, who wasn't looking very shiny anymore, and the rest of the community. There's community, how we talked about that in our objective. Hooray for Crispin! Everyone shouted. So there was a lot of things really bad that could have happened, and Crispin came to the rescue and helped his community. On Crispin's next birthday, there was a big party. Family and friends came from all over the land. Sir George and his family came too. Lots of dragons were dancing. Crispin stood with his mouth wide open. Fire still did not come out. Music came out instead. Your son, said an old uncle to Crispin's father. He's not your typical dragon, is he? No, replied Crispin's father proudly. My son is something special. And then he jumped and danced too. Isn't that such a wonderful book? I absolutely enjoyed this very, very much. And I hope you did too. Now that we're finished the book, I want you to think about what you think would be a good central message or theme from this book. What do you think would be a good lesson learned from it? Okay? Now, you probably heard, obviously, in the story, I'm going to connect this book to an activity for this week. But the first thing I want to do is I want to show you some of the enrichment activities that you have the opportunity to do this week. So, Mr. Moser, if you could go ahead and zoom in on the green papers for me, please, while I kind of get a little cleaned up here. Go ahead and stand up, Mr. Moser. So, Mrs. Moser, there are new enrichment activities that you can do. So I want to talk to you about those first, and then I'm actually going to talk about the ones from last week as well. So here are some of the things that you can do for your enrichment project. The first one is you can read 2 books, compare and contrast theme, setting, character traits, or etc., and then recount the books if you would like. So that's one of the enrichment projects you can do. Here's another one I thought was really cool. You could take a walk and look for signs of erosion, finding different types of rocks and other examples of weathering. Pictures, take pictures, you can draw, you can list your findings. This is the one that Mrs. Moser is working on. This is make a card or poster thanking healthcare workers or to cheer up the elderly. And then you can share with me by taking a picture before you send it. Another one is you can do a shape scavenger hunt through the house. You can find examples of 2D and 3D shapes, and then you can graph your findings and share it. And then again, these are some ways that you can share your findings. You can record and post it on class tag, either privately. You can put it on the class Instagram page. You can email it to me. You can call or text me your work, or you can share it on Zoom. So there's lots of options for you. Now, Mr. Moser, could you go up to the orange posters for me, please? Because if you aren't interested in doing one of those activities, then you can do the ones from our previous week that Mrs. Moser did last week. And if you remember last week, I read you a book about a hero, one of my heroes, and then I compared it to a hero in the community. So those are some great options for you. And I wanted to show you what Mrs. Moser did this week. So because we read about Crispin and how he saved his community because his father was breathing fire and scorching everything, and he came to the rescue and saved his community by breathing water. Because if he wouldn't have done that, then probably their whole town and their whole community would have burned up and there wouldn't have been anything left. So I chose to do make a card or poster thanking a healthcare worker or cheer up the elderly, but I kind of went a little above that. I decided to write a letter to the grocery store workers at Martin's, which is here in Greencastle, the store that Mr. Moser and I go to. So I wrote them a thank you card, thanking them for being brave and working so people that shop there have food on the table. So I wrote them a thank you card, thanking them for being brave, for working so hard still by providing food for us. So I went ahead and wrote a note, and I have it in the envelope, and the only thing left I have to do is put a stamp on it so you can see. And yours doesn't have to be a letter that you send. You can do a poster and give it to them, or take a picture or post it outside. Really, you have a lot of options if you choose to do something like this, okay? So I just wanted to share that with you and thinking about your community and a way you can thank someone in your community. So I'm thanking grocery store workers because I think that's really awesome. Now, one other thing that Mrs. Moser wanted to share with you, actually I have 2 things left to share with you. If you would like to do, Mr. Moser, would you mind zooming in on the blue? I thought this would be a really cool extended enrichment activity for you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read what it says. So this is something else that you can do and send to Mrs. Moser. Crispin can breathe what he thinks about. He had a lot of things coming out of his mouth throughout the story. If you were a dragon, what would you breathe right now that would help your community? So think about if you were Crispin and you were in your community, what would you like to breathe that could help people in our community right now? So I would be really curious to see what your answers are for that. So remember, you can respond. I have a lot of different ways you can reach out to Mrs. Moser, okay? And then the last thing I want to do before we get the video off is I wanted to show you this over here. Mr. Moser, would you mind zooming in over here? You'll notice that it says first raffle, April 17th. Well, what is a raffle? Well, 3-2 and 3-4, if you decide to turn in some enrichment projects for Mrs. Moser, then your name automatically gets put into a raffle. So I want to give a shout out to Layla, to Luca, and to Ariana, because they have already turned in an enrichment project to me. And I just wanted to say thank you so much. So their names are in here on a piece of paper. So the more activities you do, the more your name can go in. So say, since Luca did a project last week, if he chooses to do another one, then his name will go in again. So think about that. The more you do, the more opportunity you'll have for a raffle. And you're wondering, well, Mrs. Moser, what's this raffle all about? Well, Mr. Moser is actually helping me out, so thank you, Mr. Moser. He is actually going to make you something for the raffle, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that would be. It could be like a nameplate. It could be something really cool that he can make you, as far as something out of wood. And whenever we pull the name out, the winner gets it made. We'll get to talk about what it is that you'll get made, and also we'll deliver it to your house for you. So we'll get to drop it off. So I want you to be thinking about that, about our raffle. So far, awesome job to the people that have already committed to doing some topics, some enrichment projects. And hopefully I get some cool stuff for the extended enrichment activity or any of the activities from below. So awesome job. I miss you and love you guys so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.